What keeps stalking me? This was way before I was born. It happened to my dad when he was in his early 20s. If you knew me, you'd know that once I get interested in something like this, I won't drop it until I figure out its meaning. I think it's both a good thing and a bad thing. Anyway, his wife and a couple of his friends were bored one night. His wife at the time isn't my mom, by the way. His friend thinks that they should get out the Ouija board, since none of them believed in it, and of course mess with it. He says he regrets it now, and he also says that by messing with that thing, you don't know what you're talking to, so you shouldn't mess with it. I mean, it's just like talking to a stranger, a really scary, dangerous stranger. His friends and wife start to play with it, and he falls asleep on the couch because it was really late. When he wakes up the next morning, he said he was flipping through the book where they wrote what it said, and stopped horrified. He said he saw a name in it. Be.Busta was the name. He was scared, so he went and asked his wife what they asked it last night. She said that was what came up when they asked its name. He was too scared to flip through the rest of the book because he was afraid of what else it probably said. He also looked into this. Did it make you-know-who mad? He only mentioned that name once, and it's a name I hate to say, especially since I know who this is. He only mentioned it once because he said the power of a name, once mentioned, could draw attention to yourself if you say it way too many times. And of course, I would hate that. Weird things have always happened since. He also told me when he was asleep that night, he had a very freaky dream. He said he'd rather not describe it to me, but it was a terrible nightmare. Weird things have happened to me as well. In the middle of the night, I would get this weird feeling I was being watched. Then when I would try to look, it would look like something quickly fleeing. And also another time, not too long ago, I was lying in my bed thinking, and I heard something say to me, "Hi, Carrie." That's my name. If you didn't know, it came up close to my ear and whispered it. It freaked me out pretty bad, and it was when I felt like I was being watched. When I looked back to see, something did that weird stalk and flee thing. I don't think I can ever remember being harmed by it physically though. This has stuck with me throughout my life too. This happened at our old house as well, and it's followed me to my second house where I live today. I've looked into these things before. Any tips or advice? I don't like things that I don't know, that are watching me in my room or when I sleep. The Stalking Wolf. Ever since I was a little girl, I've been followed by a large black dog that looks rather similar to a wolf. I'm not really sure if it's a paranormal entity of sorts or a ghost, a shape-shifting and whatnot. But if I'm going for a walk, it will follow behind me. A couple of times, it has actually walked beside me. No one else sees it but me. Sometimes I think I'm going crazy. Every time I visit the graveyard, it's there. I've never tried petting it, and I've never talked to it. Should I? It doesn't exactly scare me, but I'm not sure if I should be worried of this paranormal creature. I don't have any friends, so I get extremely lonely and depressed. It's kind of nice having it around, and when I don't see it, I kind of miss it. It has bright yellow eyes, and sometimes I'll see it from afar, just staring. Maybe it's my guardian. I've heard about guardians before, but I never really believed it. A couple of months ago, I was having a panic attack. I felt like I was dying. Then I saw the black dog come out from the shadows of my room. I thought I was imagining it, but then it got extremely close to me, and instead of feeling alarmed, I felt calm. I just laid there, feeling tired and relaxed as it sat beside me, and I fell asleep. If anyone could tell me what it is or if it wants anything, please let me know. Will it follow me for the rest of my life? Do ghosts follow you from house to house? My husband and I own a two-family home in southeastern Massachusetts, which we lived in until October of 2007. There are too many details to write about concerning the otherworldly going-ons in that house, which eventually led to my calling New England Paranormal Society. And in early 2005, they did investigate, in fact. We received confirmation of 2 ghosts in that house. Note, it took me almost 3 years to contact investigators. I kept thinking there must be a logical explanation to what was happening. Fast forward to 2007, my husband and I bought a house a mile away and moved into it. We began to experience similar activities, lights being turned on when we weren't home, bathroom water running when neither of us had turned it on. About a month ago, August 2009, I went to the spare room to have a phone conversation with my daughter. When I entered the room, I noticed that, once again, the stand-up fan in that room was running, and per usual, my husband's son denied having it turned on. I unplugged the fan from the wall, sat on the bed, and continued on with my approximate 10-minute conversation. When the conversation ended and I hung up the phone, I noticed the fan was plugged back in and running. I thought to myself, did I get off the bed during that 10 minutes? Plug it in and not remember? Some months ago, my husband went upstairs and noticed the water in the bathroom sink was running. He turned the faucet off and came back downstairs to ask that I please turn the water off when I'm done. However, he never did mention it because we passed like ships in the night as I went directly upstairs to take a shower. When I went into the bathroom, I noticed the water was running and turned it off. I brought this to the attention that he had left the water running and to be more mindful to turn it off. He then explained to me that the water was running when he went upstairs, right before I did. He then turned it off, and he had meant to tell me to be more mindful to make sure I turn off the faucet. Neither of us had turned the water on, and there was no one else. Is this just all a big coincidence? But how could it be exactly? That wouldn't make much sense. I think they follow us. My name is Mimi. For a while now, me and my family have experienced a lot of ghost-like situations in which my sister's mother and I have all seen things that cannot be explained. We have moved due to different complications, but it never fails. It always feels like we weren't the only ones living in our homes, or always being watched. A few years ago, we rented out this house that we didn't really do research on the property. Maybe a big mistake on our part, but nothing really happened at first. But a few months after settling in, we then knew that we were not the only ones living there. My sister, who is 5 years younger than I, would complain that she heard voices and seen shadow-like things walking through the walls or from the corner of her eye. My youngest sister had an imaginary friend who turned out to be evil. She said her name was Jetus. My sister would say wild things that Jetus would say, like, "Jetus wants to kill you." We later found out from our neighbor who has lived next door for like 30 years that a male had passed away in the house. Myself personally have been woken up by this man, which his old room was my room actually. He was turning on and off my TV. After a few times, he was standing in the doorway and said, "Okay, I'll let you sleep now," and walked out of my room. I moved out with my husband, who isn't really into these kind of things, so he always thinks that I'm overthinking or that I watch too many movies. At our apartment, when my husband would be at work, I once again start feeling like something is watching me. One night, I was asleep and woke up to this little girl in my room. As soon as she sees me awake, she runs out the room. That is the second time I have personally seen her. Me and my husband move into my mom's new house to help around while she works nights. The whole house feels the same thing as the previous house. My husband and I moved back with my mom to help her with my sisters while she works nights. We always see shadows and see things from the corner of the eye. We hear voices and people walking around the house and playing on the stairs. Last night, for example, my mom got home around 12 a.m. and I was still awake. My younger sisters were sleeping and my husband is out to sea. I sat in the living room with my mom and I heard a knock at the back door. I looked and saw a shadow walk past me. My mom didn't see at first and claimed that I was bugging her. She checked and there was nothing outside. I went to sleep, and about an hour later, my mom hears the same knocking at the door 3 times and was too scared to check. Our dog also stares at things and seems like she gets stuck, and we can never figure out what has got her attention. My question to anybody willing to answer or reply: could this thing have followed us? Is there something we should be worried about? And has anyone been through something similar? Could it be that my family has a special eye for this kind of thing? I don't know, but one thing is for certain: this is creeping me out. The ghost that follows. I guess it started when I was 4 years old, with a bad fever and very, very sick. My mother says I popped up straight and stared at the end of my bed and asked, "Who is that lady on my bed?" Since then, I've always felt a presence my entire life. I know now I am never alone, not ever. My entire life, every time I feel danger, something or someone tells me what to do. It is all in my head. I do not hear voices, I just listen to what I'm told. I get warnings regularly and most of the time follow their lead, but sometimes I do not. I'm often given the answers to many questions in my head, questions I would have no idea of knowing. This entity has followed me my entire life, even going so far as to hiding my keys in coffee cups. The entity I feel is a friend. They joke and play. I have never felt threatened by any means, but more comforted. The funny part is, I am atheist, and so I find myself somewhat mystified by the behavior and reason for this attachment. I am not afraid of it, but I've gotten used to it. I'm just wondering if anyone else has had a following of spirits of sorts, or if anyone had similar stories. It only spoke to me one time when I was walking down a street, and the only word it said was stop. I looked around and saw no one that seemed to be paying me any attention, but I stopped anyway. I saw a bench and went to sit down, just to relax for a moment. Nothing happened. I saw nothing. I waited about 10 minutes and then stood up on my way. To this day, I do not know why I was supposed to stop, but I did, since learning to trust the entity that has bound itself to me for so many years seems like a logical thing to do at the time. I'm 51 now, and the entity is still at large. I suppose I should or will not know what it is there for, but I just thought I would share. Unborn Baby still follows me. My name is Yasmin. I have 2 kids, a daughter that is 5 and a son that is 2. I will call them A and L for short. Before I got pregnant with my daughter A, I suffered a miscarriage. I was about a couple months along. Very sad. I got really depressed. Then I found out I was pregnant with my daughter A. Nothing really started to happen until after I had my son L. They are 3 years apart. So let's say it's been about 6 years since my miscarriage. After I had my son L, weird things started happening around my house. Sometimes I would hear a child say, "Mama, Mama," in a whisper. Sometimes, when the house was real quiet, I could hear a child running in the hall, when in fact, I know they were sleeping. Miscarriage happened in a different place, not the same house. Then, I started to hear a baby crying. I thought it was my baby, so I would rush to check on him, but he would be sound asleep, practically snoring. I started to think, why, at that moment, did my baby that I lost start reaching out to me? Was it because it was a boy? And that's why I didn't hear anything with my daughter. I also felt as though a little person would fall asleep in my arms, touch my hand, and kiss my cheek. This was when my baby was barely even born. It stopped for a while, until now in 2014. I was driving, and my kids were in the back. All of a sudden, I hear someone whispering, but I can't make it out. I thought my daughter was trying to tell me something, so I asked, "What is it?" She said she didn't say anything, so I brushed it off, but I kept hearing something. And then I heard someone, a child, say, "Mama." Is my child trying to communicate with me?